Welcome to Wine 101, Module 3. Please enter your full name and click Next to continue. The course. Be sure your sound is turned on. This course is narrated. The course content applies to all associates that want to know more about wine. This course contains narrated content and videos. You must read and watch all content to successfully complete this course. If you need to exit the course before completing it, you will return to the screen where you left off the next time you log in. Navigating the course. Choose a topic below to review the content. Terroir and why does it matter? Growing cycle of a vine. Grape trellising. Enemy of the vine. Complete the knowledge assessment once you have visited all of the content. Terroir definition. Terroir is how a particular region's climate, soils, and aspect, terrain, affect the taste of wine. Some regions are said to have more terroir than others. Terroir is one of the most used and least understood wine words. Originally, it was associated with earthy notes in many Old World wines. Back in the 1980s, many of these terroir-driven wines were actually affected by wine faults, including cork taint and wild yeast growth, Brettanomyces. Nowadays, terroir is used to describe practically every wine region. For example, Napa's terroir, Bordeaux's terroir, Priorat's terroir, Washington's terroir, etc., etc. And it has lost its meaning. It's time to know what this overused word really means, because it's actually kind of useful. What is terroir? Click on each of the tabs below. Climate. Wine regions can be basically divided into two types of climates, cool climate and warm climate. Wine grapes from warmer climates generate higher sugar levels, which produce higher alcohol wines, whereas cooler climate wine grapes generally have lower sugar levels and retain more acidity. For instance, Oakville, AVA, and Napa Valley receives just a touch more sun and heat year-round than the Médoc and Bordeaux. While both regions produce Cabernet Sauvignon, the Médoc produces Cabernet wines with greater natural acidity because of the weather. Soil. There are hundreds of different types of soil, rock, and mineral deposits in the world's vineyards. Most vineyard soils can be sorted into about 5 to 6 different types of soil that affect the flavor of wine. While there is no scientific proof associating the taste of minerality to actual minerals in a wine, something does happen. It's almost as though some types of soils act like a tea bag for water as it passes through the vine's roots. For instance, South Africa is marked by 50-million-year-old granitic soils. Granite is known for its heat retention and the quality of reducing acidity in high-acid wine grapes. Writers have described South Africa's red wines as graphite-like, gravelly, and like freshly wetted concrete. Click the play button to watch the video.
My name is Glenn Creasy. I'm a senior lecturer here at Lincoln University working in grapevine physiology effectively, but I'm a viticultural lecturer. So my job is to do all things related to the culture and management of grapevines, the production of fruit, leading pretty much up until it becomes made into wine. More currently, my work is focusing, along with the people that work in soil science here and also Professor Roland Harrison, at the effects of climate and soil on grapes and wine. So again, we're taking it all the way through into the wine and looking at sensory analysis of the wine and also into the aroma compounds that make up that sensory part of the wine. So it's a a complete package, really, from soil all the way to glass that we're trying to deal with.
My name is Roland Harrison. I was born in England, in the UK, and I trained as a chemist initially, and I teach wine chemistry and wine technology, and do research into aspects of wine. So wine chemistry is about the various chemical parameters associated with wine. So there are some technical parameters that are important in making wine. So, for example, pH, acidity, sugar content, alcohol content, sulfur dioxide concentrations. All these parameters are important for winemakers because they help control the process of harvesting grapes and making wine. But there are other aspects of chemistry which I'm more interested in, I suppose, and that is to do with the chemistry associated with taste and flavour. So why do certain wines taste in certain ways? What are the chemicals that contribute to that? One of the projects that we were interested in was to look at the relationships between quality in Pinot Noir and mouthfeel. So mouthfeel is a tactile sensation that you have in the mouth, and it comes about from a number of different components that you find in wine. And these components can either come from the grape itself, or they can come from the metabolism of sugar into alcohol by the yeast. So in doing that conversion, the yeast produces alcohol, but it also produces a number of other byproducts which can be important in terms of both the aromatic but also the mouthfeel aspects of the wine. So we were interested in a variety of different techniques in allowing us to measure these different mouthfeel aspects. So chromatography, for example, to measure acids, different acids, enzymatic techniques to measure some of the yeast byproducts, and sort of straightforward wet chemistry methods to measure the tannins here in the lab. Quality winemakers are interested in the place they're in. There's something about the place they're in which they want to express in the wine. And so trying to understand what it is about a particular site which gives it particular characteristics is I think something that most winemakers are interested in. They want to try and understand that and to express that. Different winemakers have different approaches to terroir, but I think because wine is actually always associated with a place, I think if the winemaker's doing their job properly and the site is expressing something, then they become very distinctive. They have a signature that people recognize and say, okay, this wine is expressing this particular site. And people were interested in individuality.
My name is Peter Armand. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Soil and Physical Sciences at Lincoln University. It's really fulfilling to be able to talk to a viticulturalist and explain to them what the soils are in different parts of their vineyard and allow them then to plan their plantings for varieties to suit different kinds of soils, but also to have the plantings within homogeneous areas of soil so that they can confidently say, this is the terroir coming through in the wine, this is the particular kind of soil, and you can taste it. Having that finesse in your understanding of the soils allows that to come through to the finesse in the wine.
The research we're doing here in Waipara, I think, is very important, not only for the wine industry, particularly those people producing Pinot Noir. It's important for a wide variety of reasons that go from production all the way through to marketing and even in consumer appreciation. What we're doing is quite ambitious. We're trying to take a huge amount of information about the soil, the air, the sun, the wind, and all the processes and how they interact with the grapevine, all the way through to a wine product that is then interpreted by somebody when they taste it. this project is a small step in the direction of making some very important decisions or important bits of information that can be used in decision making for the industry. And I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to reach that end at some point in the future.
Terrain. Terrain includes a vineyard's elevation, geological features, whether it's near a mountain range, located in a valley, close to a large body of water, etc., and natural fauna. All these factors influence a region's terroir and the grapes it produces. Altitude is a key factor for premium grape growing. High altitude vineyards experience the most dramatic temperature swings from daytime highs to nighttime lows. This difference from daytime to nighttime temperature is known as diurnal shift. Their daytime exposure to the sun creates all the ripening qualities in the wine, i.e. sugar, while the sudden drop in temperature at night slows or stops the ripening process, which preserves the balance of natural acids, fruit flavors, and color, and also ensures lots of acidity in the wine, which gives a wine its structure. So the greater the difference between daytime and nighttime temperatures, the more intense the grape expression will be in the wine. For instance, Mendoza, Argentina has vineyards around 4,000 feet above sea level. The high elevation gives Malbec heightened acidity due to cool nighttime temperatures. Click here to read an article about how altitude affects wine. Tradition. Traditional winemaking and vineyard growing techniques can contribute to a wine's terroir. Even though tradition is a human interaction, ancient winemaking methods tend to be highly dependent on the region's climate, soil, and terrain. For instance, on the island of Santorini, the Assyrtiko grape is uniquely trained in ground-hugging, basket-weaved fashion to minimize wind damage during flowering, as well as grape sunburn. Click the PDF below for the Traditions of Terroir article. Growing cycle of the vine. Introduction. The annual growth cycle of grapevines is the process that takes place in the vineyard each year, beginning with bud break in the spring and culminating in leaf fall in autumn, followed by winter dormancy. From a winemaking perspective, each step in the process plays a vital role in the development of grapes with ideal characteristics for making wine. The stages of the annual growth cycle usually become observable within the first year of a vine's life. Spring. Bud break is when the vine starts its annual growth cycle. Tiny buds in the vine start to swell and eventually shoots begin to grow. In the northern hemisphere, this usually occurs during March or April. Summer. After bud break, the process of flowering begins with small flower clusters appearing on the tips of the young shoots, looking like buttons. This is generally during late April or early May. Fruit set follows flowering almost immediately. This is when the fertilized flower begins to develop a seed and grapeberry to protect the seed. The flowers of grapevines are called perfect flowers. They pollinate themselves without the need of insects. After fruit set, the grapeberries are green and hard to the touch. They have very little sugar and are high in acid. They begin to grow to about half their final size when they enter the stage of veraison. This stage signals the beginning of the ripening process and normally takes place around 40 to 50 days after fruit set, which is generally around the end of July, 1st of August. Veraison is when red grapes will begin to change color from green to red, and when sugars rise and acid levels fall, most occurring from late August through late October. Fall. Picking the grapes, known as harvest, is one of the most crucial steps in the winemaking process. The timing of harvest is determined primarily by the ripeness of the grape, as measured by sugar, acid, and tannin levels, with winemakers basing their decision to pick based on the style of wine they wish to produce. Weather can also affect harvest with the threat of heat, rain, hail, and frost, which can damage the grapes and bring about various vine diseases. Different grape varieties ripen at different times, meaning that harvest can vary from early August to mid-November, with most occurring from late August through late October. Winter. Following the harvest, the vines continue the process of photosynthesis, creating carbohydrate reserves to store in the vine's roots and trunks. It will continue doing this until an appropriate level of reserves have been stored. At that point, the chlorophyll in the leaves begin to break down, and the leaves change color from green to yellow. Following the first frosts, the leaves begin to fall as the vine starts to enter its winter dormancy period. From November onward, winter returns, foliage dies off, vines are trimmed and pruned, and the cycle begins once again. What is a trellis? A trellis is an architectural structure, usually made from an open framework or lattice of interwoven or intersecting pieces of wood, bamboo, or metal that is normally made to support and display climbing plants, especially shrubs. There are many types of trellis for different places and for different plants, from agricultural types, especially in viticulture, to garden uses for climbers such as grapevines, clematis, ivy, and climbing roses or other support-based growing plants. Why we need a trellis. Grapes naturally grow upwards towards the sun. Grapes naturally grow up towards the sun, competing with and using fellow plants and trees to elbow their way up to the sunlight. A grapevine is perfectly happy hanging around a treetop, stealing the available sunlight and producing sweet grapes up high. The birds and other critters will relocate the seeds, ensuring that the grapevines will exist in the future. Mission accomplished. Now we grape-loving humans come along and see that it's not very easy to harvest grapes from the treetops. A better idea is to control these far-reaching vines in an attempt to maximize their performance and make it easier for us to harvest the fruit. The use of vine training systems in viticulture is aimed primarily to assist in canopy management, with finding the balance in enough foliage to facilitate photosynthesis without excessive shading that can impede grape ripening or promote grape diseases. Additional benefits of utilizing particular training systems could be to control potential yields and to facilitate mechanization of certain vineyard tasks, such as harvesting the grapes, pruning, and irrigation. In deciding on what type of vine training system to use, growers will also consider the climate conditions of the vineyard where the amount of sunlight, humidity, and wind could have a large impact on the exact benefits the training system offers. For instance, while having a large spread-out canopy can promote a favorable leaf-to-fruit ratio for photosynthesis, it offers very little wind protection. In places such as Châteauneuf-du-Pape, strong prevailing winds can take the fruit right off the vine, so a more condensed, protective vine training system is desirable for vineyards there. Click the play button to watch the video.
Hi, my name is Michael James, and my friends call me the Grape Meister. I've been growing grapes and making wine for a number of years, and in this video series, I'd like to share those experiences with you. In this video, I'm going to briefly cover the following material. I'm going to show you why you need a trellis system for your grapes, the different types of trellises, why you need a trellis system before you plant your first vine, high versus low trellis systems for your vineyard, and what they can be constructed from. You definitely need grape trellises if you plan to grow your own grapes for winemaking. An interwoven structure is necessary for supporting the grapevines. Beyond just supporting the vines, trellises allow aspiring winemakers to grow their own grapes in a small space like their backyards. I had a woman who worked for me in New York City, and her father had 6 vines that produced enough wines for gallons of Italian red right in the middle of Brooklyn. Even if you have acres of ground, you need trellises for your vines because the vines can't bear fruit on the ground. A grape trellis can come in any shape or material imaginable. As a matter of fact, you can choose between either a decorative or a functional trellis. A decorative trellis is ideal for smaller backyard vineyards. Obviously, this type of structure would be made in such a way that it can adorn your mini vineyard. But for larger vineyards that are built for the sole purpose of producing grapes for winemaking, functional trellises are more ideal, as no one working in the vineyard will care if your vines are shaped like dolphins or dinosaurs. Whatever your choice for trellises will be, always remember that you can either assemble them yourself or buy them from some winemaking supply store. If you have a large vineyard, it would be wise to have the trellises constructed for you. Trellises can be made from iron, aluminum, PVC pipe, wood, and even stainless steel. Construct your trellises before you plant your first grape plants. The ideal layout for your vineyard is an 8x8 area for each one of your vines. There are 2 basic trellis heights. High trellises are best for warm climates, and low trellises will protect your vines during harsh, snowy months. It is best to cement the posts of your trellises to make sure that they don't collapse from the weight of your grape crop. After setting up the grape trellis, all you need to do is wait for the vine to sprout. As it grows, you will see a number of shoots coming out of the roots. Select the strongest among all the shoots and attach it to the trellis using strings or a piece of cloth. So now you have your vines planted, trained to trellises, and properly pruned. The next step is to sit back, enjoy a glass of wine, and watch nature take its course and produce a bumper crop for your grape and winemaking pleasure. For a free 10-part mini-course on how to grow grapes and making your own wine, go to my website, www.totalwine.
Examples of different wine trellis systems. Vine training systems can be broadly classified by a number of different measurements. One of the oldest means was based on the relative height of the trunk, with the distance of the canopy from the ground being described as high-trained, also known as high culture, or vine haut, or low-trained, vine basse. Click on each of the images to get a better look at different types of trellis systems. Enemy of the vine. What is phylloxera and why is it detrimental to wine production? Phylloxera is an almost microscopic, pale yellow, sap-sucking root louse or insect related to aphids, which feeds on the roots and leaves of grapevines. This gradually cuts off the flow of nutrients and water to the vine, slowly killing it. In the late 19th century, the phylloxera epidemic destroyed most of the vineyards in Europe, most notably in France. Because phylloxera is native to North America, the native grape species are resistant. By contrast, the Vitis vinifera grapevines are very susceptible to the insect. Because of this resistance, Vitis vinifera wines in most wine-growing regions are grafted onto American rootstock. Meaning below the ground, the vine is an American rootstock, and above the ground is the vine that produces the grapes we know. Phylloxera in the news. Below we have shared a few articles about regions and vineyards that have been affected by phylloxera. Click the links below to read the articles.